What's going on, sports fans? Welcome back to Sucker Free Sports Talk, your Chicago sports talk show for everything Bulls, Bears, and more. I am your host, Sam James, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about why the Super Bowl is the best sporting event in the world. We're going to talk about what the Bears need to do to set the groundwork to return to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2005. I'll give you my full betting picks for that game as well. But first, before we get into the NBA trade deadline and what the Bulls didn't do, I want to talk a little bit about Billy Donovan, the Chicago Bulls head coach.
Bulls talk, talking about the Bulls, yeah. Bulls talk, talking about the Bulls, alright.
Things that are continuing to concern me about Billy. Nothing personal against Billy Donovan. I think he's a good guy. I actually think he's a good basketball mind. He's a former player, played for Providence. We've talked about this before. But in Monday night's win against the San Antonio Spurs, Patrick Williams, we all know Pat Williams, he's had problems with confidence. That's the main thing with Pat. He lacks aggressiveness at times. And in that game, he had 11 points. In the first half, he was looking good. He was looking aggressive. And then towards the end of the game, the Bulls started to pull away there. Billy was going with Derrick Jones Jr. and some of the bench guys. And as the Bulls pulled away, Billy Donovan refused to put Patrick Williams back into the game. Patrick ended that game with 18 minutes. And I tweeted something about that, wondering why Billy Donovan, if he has something against Patrick Williams personally, if he doesn't like him as a player, I don't know. Some people were trying to say, well, he was trying to rest him for the next game because they're going into a back-to-back against the Memphis Grizzlies. And to that, I got to say Bull, because he was playing Zach LaVine at the end of that game. He was playing DeMar DeRozan at the end of that game. DeMar DeRozan didn't even play in the next game because he was resting. So it wasn't about rest. I think Billy Donovan has something against Williams. Anytime something goes wrong on the court, anytime the Bulls lose a lead, or anytime the bench players get a big lead, then he refuses to put Patrick Williams in the game. It's like anything that goes good, he doesn't give Pat credit for. Anything that goes bad, he doesn't give Pat, or anything that goes bad, he gives Pat the blame for. You know, this guy's had problems with confidence. If anything, I think you'd want him in there at the end of the game when they're blowing a team out to build on that and to get some more points, get his stat line up so he can go into the next game against the Memphis Grizzlies, which on that Tuesday night game, Pat struggled coming out. He had a really bad first half there, didn't look good. And the Bulls ended up losing that game. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about, going back to that San Antonio Spurs game, Andre Drummond had a huge game in that Spurs game. 20 points, 15 rebounds. It was his best game all year. And this is coming off of being benched for a large part of the season. Billy Donovan was turning to Derrick Jones Jr. playing the center of that bench unit. Wasn't a good move. I was calling for it all year. You got to have Andre Drummond in there. Yeah, he drives you nuts sometimes with some of his plays, but what he can add with his size and rebounding, that's what you need for this Bulls team. And after the game, Billy Donovan was asked about that and why he was going back to Andre Drummond. And Billy Donovan decided to double down on stupid and say we still need to look at Derrick Jones Jr. playing the 5. Come on, man. Realize that you made a mistake here. Derrick Jones Jr. is not a center. This small ball stuff in the NBA, I've never really been a fan of it. The Golden State Warriors kind of popularized it with Draymond Green, but Derrick Jones Jr. isn't Draymond Green. He can't guard these bigger guys. He can't rebound with some of these bigger centers in the NBA. You got to stick with Andre Drummond. Billy's given Derrick Jones too many minutes, in my opinion. He's a decent little bench player. He can come off and give you some energy with some dunks and stuff, but at the same time, you know, some of these lineups Billy Donovan's going with, some of the decisions he's going with these younger players like Pat Williams, you might want to blame it on scheme, and you might want to blame it on roster that Pat's having to play with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and that's, you know, lacking his opportunities. But at the same time, I don't think Billy Donovan has done a bad job instilling confidence in Patrick Williams, our brightest young player. Like I said, Bulls win that game. Monday, big win, beat them by almost 30 points, and then they come back Tuesday and drop a big game to the Memphis Grizzlies that would have got them would have got them to 500 for the first time in a long time. Another one of those games where Bulls get a pretty decent lead and then they blow it. Kind of the story of the whole season. As soon as you get high on this team, you get to the highest of highs, and then they'll just take you down to the lowest of lows. Frustrating team to watch all year long, and then it's accumulated Into today, the NBA trade deadline. We're all waiting for it to see what the Bulls were due. And the Bulls did nothing. They stayed pat. They're sticking with this roster. A lot of fans are disappointed about this. I am kind of too. You know, there were some talks about Zach LaVine possibly going to the New York Knicks right before the trade deadline. A lot of reports were coming out. I don't know where it was coming from that the Knicks were looking at trading for Zach LaVine. A lot of fans were hoping for it. And I think Zach's probably the biggest problem with this team. He's your highest paid player, and in the biggest of moments, Zach becomes nothing. He doesn't do anything for you at the end of the games. He doesn't win you any games. You can't have your highest player be such a shell at the end of games like that. I thought the Bulls should have tried to move him. Also, I thought maybe they would have tried to move Vooch because his contract's coming up here, and you got to decide whether you're going to pay him or just lose him for nothing after you traded for him 2 years ago to the Magic. Bulls stay pat. One of two teams to not do anything this year, not make one moves, Chicago Bulls and Cleveland Cavaliers. That's it. So 29 other teams made moves and the Bulls didn't. Now, I'm not going to say, make a move for nothing. I'm not going to say, invest in this team. This team hasn't shown you anything. This core hasn't shown you anything. Can you win with this core? Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, none of them are defenders. None of them have really shown anything as a core together. Now you say, well, last year when we had Lonzo Ball, the first 40 games of the season, this was a really good team. This was the number one seed in the East, and yeah, I get that, but that's last year, and like I said, all year long, Lonzo Ball is not coming back to save you. Something is wrong with that man's knee, and this core is not going anywhere. Zach LaVine, as the highest paid player, is not going to take you anywhere. He's shown it his whole career, and that's why I was wondering about that decision to give him the max contract. The max contract that so many fans and so many analysts said the Bulls had to give. I thought that was a bad decision when it happened. And now look. 9th seed in the East. 3 games out of that 6th seed. Or 3 games out of the 7th seed. They're not even 3 games out of the 6th seed. I think they're like 4 games out of that 6th seed. Brooklyn's probably going to move down in the standings here, but who's going to take their place? The Bulls? I doubt it. We'll see what happens, but I doubt it. I have no faith in this team anymore. You're riding with this core. You're staying put. Continuity. That's kind of seems like what Arturas is going with here. He's not making any moves. See what we got, but I think fans can kind of see what we got. A lackluster, mediocre team, unfortunately. All right, so that brings us to the NBA trade deadline. Like I said, the Bulls stayed pat, but there was some other big moves. Kyrie Irving traded to the Dallas Mavericks. I think this is a really good move for the Mavericks. Yeah, there's concerns with Kyrie Irving, personal life stuff, and also his want to be places. He's asked out of 3 different places now. He's demanding a trade, but still, you had to have another scorer come in for Luka. When he goes to the bench, that team just goes to shit. So having another guy there, I think Kyrie Irving will complement Luka Doncic pretty well, and I think that's a good move for the Dallas Mavericks. Then Brooklyn comes back, and they trade Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns. This was a big, surprising move. It happened late last night when I was at work. I think I found out about 1 a.m. I saw it on Instagram, and I had to go to Google to double-check if it was real or not. And it is, in fact, real. Brooklyn gets Cam Johnson, McCall Bridges, Jay Crowder, 4 first-round picks. Pretty big haul there for Kevin Durant, but he is one of the top 5 players in the league. I think this is a good move for the Suns. You keep your core intact and DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and then you add Kevin Durant to that group. I think the Phoenix Suns become instant title favorites in Phoenix. And then the LA Lakers. Lakers have been making a lot of moves lately. They added Rui Hachimura a couple weeks ago. And then they trade Russell Westbrook. They got out of the Russell Westbrook problem. The guy was a good player. I don't think he is anymore. You watch this guy at the end of the games, he just turns the ball over. He's yelling at his players when he's the one turning the ball over. I never really was that big of a fan of Russell, but even at this point and late in his career, he's gotten worse. So they trade Russell Westbrook, 3-team trade. Timberwolves and Jazz get involved. Lakers get Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt. I think that helps their team. Jared Vanderbilt's a good defensive guy, and Malik Beasley is a shooter, something they need. Big winner in this trade, though, is the Jazz, who will likely cut Westbrook, and then they get that 2027 first-round pick from the Lakers. Now, another piece of Bulls move here. Some people are trying to say that the Bulls might try to sign Russell Westbrook. That's not going to help this team. It's only going to make things worse. You put him in there at the end of the games with Zach LaVine, two guys with some of the worst hands in the NBA. I'm not going to be a big fan of that move if it happens, but I think Arturas knows that won't be a good move, and hopefully he does not do it. Lakers get also Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba goes to the Lakers. So they're adding some pieces there. I think they actually did improve at the trade deadline, so let's see if they can move up in the standings. And then Gary Payton II, he goes back to the Warriors for 4 second-round picks. There was a lot of trades, this NBA trade deadline, where teams were sending 4 and 5 second-round picks. It's like, are second-round picks really that invaluable that you'll trade 4 picks for Gary Payton II? I like Gary Payton II. He helped them win the championship last year. But some other moves like Sadiq Bey got traded for 5 second-round picks. It's like, what is going on with some of these second-round picks? I don't know. I guess teams don't really think they're valuable. Bulls got Ayo Dosunmu a couple years ago in the second round. Draymond Green, he's a second-round pick, but teams are just getting rid of them like they're nothing. So that's the NBA trade deadline. A lot of moves happen. Like I said, Bulls and Cavs, only teams not to make moves. We'll see what happens with some of these teams going forward, but I think the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks are the big winners from this NBA trade deadline, and the Brooklyn Nets are the big loser. All right, so that takes us to the Super Bowl, the last game of the season. It's been a long NFL season. It's been a pretty fun NFL season. I've really enjoyed it, besides the fact that the Bears sucked. So the Super Bowl is set for Sunday at 5:30. The 16-3 Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the 16-3 Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles open up as 1.5-point favorites. Eagles have had the best all-around team all year long. Couple bad games, but you go from quarterback play, O-line, D-line, secondary, linebackers. This team has it all. Pass rush. Front office has done a great job over there in Philadelphia. Most of these guys came in the draft. The Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes enter this week as underdogs for only the second time in Pat Mahomes' career. The other time was last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, and we saw what happened there. Although the Eagles have the better roster, like I said, overall, the Chiefs arguably have the 3 best players in this game, and Chris Jones, Pat Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. Can Pat do enough to win this game? I said 2 weeks ago I thought that ankle injury was going to be a concern for Patrick Mahomes, and it wasn't. He was able to get the job done. Yeah, he was limping around a little bit, but he was able to stay in the pocket and make plays. Pat Mahomes continues to amaze me in everything he can do. He can do everything on the football field. As much as he can drive me nuts sometimes, you can't deny how good of a football player this guy is, if not probably the best football player in the NFL. Last time the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, he was running for his life, though. That pass rush that the Buccaneers were putting on him that game was really getting to him. Wasn't able to get anything going in that game. We'll see if the Philadelphia Eagles can do the same and get to Patrick Mahomes. Which brings us to some of the top storylines to this game. Can Jalen Hurts do enough? Can he put up enough points to stick with Patrick Mahomes in that Chiefs offense? I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's had a really good season. He was the MVP frontrunner there for a while. But he's still kind of new to this. He has played in big games in the past at Alabama and Oklahoma. But we'll see what happens there. I like to see Jalen Hurts perform. And then who will generate the most pressure on the quarterback? We saw it last week. The Cincinnati Bengals weren't able to put enough pressure on Pat Mahomes, and that Chiefs defense and Chris Jones put a ton of pressure on Joe Burrow, and I think that's ended up what won the game there for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have to watch out for Chris Jones. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to have to put 2 guys on him because you can't block this guy with one lineman. You're going to have to put a chip on him. You're going to have to use a tight end. You're going to have to use a running back because he absolutely destroyed Joe Burrow last week. And then the third major storyline for this game for me is, can the Eagles linebackers and secondary find a way to stop Travis Kelce? In my opinion, the greatest tight end of all time. This guy just finds a way to get open. No matter how you want to scheme it up, you can't put just one guy on this guy. He's going to find his way to get open in the middle of the field. The only time I've ever really seen Travis Kelce get stopped was in that Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Buccaneers. They really schemed up a way to stop him. They had 2 guys on him, whether it was the secondary or the linebackers. They absolutely took Travis Kelce away. So we'll see if the Eagles can do the same. All right, that brings us to a little quick sucker-free top 10. These are the top 10 players in the Super Bowl. Starting at number 10, I'm going with Miles Sanders. Kind of a surprise here for some people, but this guy's been playing really good football of late. Good running back there for the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 9, I'm going with Fletcher Cox, defensive lineman for the Eagles. Getting up there in age, but he can still dominate that interior. Good run defender, really good player, Fletcher Cox. At number 8, Darius Slay, also getting up there in age, but he continues to show that he is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. At number 7, I'm going with A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the Eagles, big target. Been a big upgrade for the Eagles all year long. Let's see if he can make some plays in the Super Bowl. At number 6, Lane Johnson. If you notice a pattern here, all first 5 players on my list are Eagles players. Good offensive lineman, really good tackle, one of the best in the league, Lane Johnson. And at 5, we finally get to a Chiefs player, Chris Jones, the defensive tackle. This guy absolutely dominated last week, like I said. Eagles are going to have to watch out for this guy, or he can wreck this game and possibly win MVP. Watch out for him for MVP. At number 4, I'm going with Jason Kelce, the center for the Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about him last week. Best center in the league, one of the best offensive linemen in the league. At number 3, I am going with Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the best football players in the world. The guy was born to do it. Whether it's running the ball, passing the ball, this guy can do it all. At number 2, surprise here, I'm going with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback for the Chiefs, can do it all. But at number 1, I'm going with the greatest tight end of all time, Travis Kelce. I just put him a little step above Pat Mahomes. Those are my top 10 players. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Where I get it right? Where did I get it wrong? Who did I leave off the list that should be on the list? All right, let's get into some bets for this game. We all know the gambling for the Super Bowl is a big topic. You can bet on pretty much anything, prop bets. It's all over the place. DraftKings, we know the gambling's a big thing in the United States nowadays. So I'm going to give you 5 picks for this game that you should do. At number 1, I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles to win and cover by 1.5. I like that spread for the Eagles. I think this roster is going to be too much to overcome for the Chiefs. I think top to bottom, it's just a better team. My second bet, I'm taking the over 50.5. I think both these teams' offenses are going to come out here and put up points. I think they're going to be focused. You're going to have 25 points a piece for each team. One team has to get 26. I think that's going to happen. Number 3, the MVP bet, one of my favorite bets for the Super Bowl. Usually goes to a quarterback, but you got to look out for some dark horse players here, and I usually like to go defense. I'm going with Hassan Reddick, the defensive end for the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy absolutely wrecked it in the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers. Knocked Brock Purdy out of that game. I think he had like 3 sacks, fumble recovery. This guy's a monster. I'm voting for MVP Hassan Reddick. At number 4, the first touchdown scorer. This is also a bet a lot of guys like to do. I'm going Devontae Smith. If the Eagles get the ball first, and if the Chiefs get the ball first, you got to go with the man, Travis Kelce. And my 5th bet. This is a 50-50 bet, the most 50-50 bet of all time. It can't get any more 50-50 than this. The coin flip, I'm going with tails because tails never fails. All right, let's talk about why the Super Bowl is the greatest sporting event in the world. First off, the game. The best 2 teams in the NFL coming together for one final game. It's not like the NBA or the NHL. It's not a 7-game series. It's not like March Madness where you have a big tournament. It comes down to one game. Greatest game to watch. Football is the most fun game to watch. And that is the first reason why the Super Bowl is the greatest sporting event in the world. The second reason, the food, the wings, the Italian beefs, the charcuterie. Even though it's charcuterie, what is it? I mean, I can just pull out some grape jelly and a couple pieces of American cheese, put it on the board. That's charcuterie. However, the appetizers, the crock pot dishes, the food in the Super Bowl is good. It's a holiday in itself. At number 3, the commercials. Yeah, the commercials aren't as big as it used to be. Some of them come out before the Super Bowl even starts. But name another sporting event in the world where the advertisements are as big as the game for some people. I'm waiting. You can't tell me. At number 4, the entertainment. The lead up to the game, the interviews, the performances, and then the halftime performances is just as big as the Super Bowl for some people as well, just as big as the game. This year we got Rihanna. Not the biggest fan, but she is pretty good. Wasn't the biggest fan of last year's performance, even though I like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and all that. I wasn't the biggest fan of the theatrics of last year's halftime show, but we'll see how this year's show goes. But those are the reasons why the Super Bowl is the greatest sporting event in the world. Yeah, you got, your World Cup and March Madness, but the cream of the crop is the Super Bowl. All right, so what do the Bears need to do to return to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2005? Build through the draft, number one. Bears need to build through the draft. Look at the Eagles here. The Eagles, almost every player they got, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Jalen Hurts, they've gotten all these guys through the draft. All the good teams, they really build through the draft. That's what the Bears need to start doing. They need to be pertinent in free agency. Don't be giving out giant contracts just because you have the money. I know they have to spend a certain amount of money, but at the same time, build some of these special teams units up. Build some of your backup units up. Get some quality backups on this team, because right now, the guys you have starting aren't even really quality backups for some teams. So build through the draft, and then be pertinent in free agency, and also get a new stadium. A lot of talk about the stadium, whether the Bears are going to Arlington Heights, whether they're going to stay in Chicago. This team will continue to be a bottom dweller until they get a new stadium. You would be surprised how much a change of scenery, how much a respectable stadium will do for morale for this team and the fan base. I don't care whether it's in Chicago or Arlington Heights at this point. We just need to get the groundwork going to get that new stadium. And then get some consistency with the coaching staff and the quarterback. How many years has it been now for the Chicago Bears where we go, 2 years and then we get another head coach? 2 years, another quarterback. 1 year, another quarterback. Lovie Smith was here for a while, but we were transferring quarterbacks the whole time when he was here. Get some consistency. Have Justin Fields, Luke Getsy, Matt Eberflus. They all learn from each other next year. And keep it going into the next year. Has to have a good year next year to learn from each other and build for the next 4 or 5 years to come. Bears rumors continue to swirl, offseason rumors. Adam Schefter had a report where he said that the Bears will get unbelievable offers for that number 1 pick. Wow. Breaking news there from Adam Schefter, as always. Like we don't know that already. Wide receiver wise, some talk about trades here. T. Higgins is big on the list. Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, those are other names that have been looking at for trades around the NFL. Personally, T. Higgins, I think that would be a big upgrade for the Bears. I really like this guy, a guy that can go and get it, high point the football. You're going to have to give up a lot to get him. And we already gave up that second-round pick to get Chase Claypool last year. Kind of been a disappointment so far. I don't think we can give up any more draft capital on trading for wide receivers. If the price is right, I would try to get him, but you can't give up too much. I think you're going to have to give up a first-round pick for T. Higgins. And what are we going to do, give up our first overall? Maybe if we pick up an extra first-round pick this year's draft, we can get T. Higgins, but it's going to be hard to do. All right, so that's the Chicago Bears. Let's get into your favorite segment, shit that pisses me off.
I hate this fucking shit.
Guinness World Records. When I was a kid, I used to read the Guinness Book of World Records. Pretty interesting book. You see the guy with the longest fingernails, or the guys that can make their eyeballs pop out. Pretty interesting to look in a book. But now I go around social media and all I see is these stupid, meaningless records being broke, and it's all over my timeline. Recently, some guy who partnered with Pizza Hut made the world's largest pizza in an airline hangar. What a waste of time and effort. Who cares? It's not even that big of an engineering feat. All you did was lay out a bunch of dough and sauce in an airline hangar and took a picture of it and said, yeah, I made the world's biggest pizza. What a waste of food as well. Nobody's going to eat that. They always say, oh, well, we're donating it to a food shelter. They don't want that shit. It's probably uncooked, nasty shit anyways. Kind of reminds me of a Seinfeld episode where they were only making the muffin tops. Elaine had a business idea, and then they tried bringing the muffin bottoms to the homeless shelter, and they got all mad, like, we don't want your muffin bottoms. But yeah, like I said, waste of food. These records are just stupid. Just stop showing me it. Nobody cares, who can eat the most jelly donuts in 10 minutes or how many fast food restaurants you can visit in 24 hours. Those aren't records. They're meaningless. Stop showing me that shit. Guinness World Records. That is some shit that pisses me off. All right, speaking of records, LeBron James, we all know he passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most points ever in NBA history. Is it impressive? Yes. Is it as big of a deal as LeBron and the NBA made it out to be? I don't think so. I really didn't think that they were going to stop an NBA game to have a big, giant ordeal at the end of the third quarter because this guy broke a record. When Emmitt Smith broke the record in the NFL for the most rushing yards ever, they didn't stop the game. Now, I went back and did some research on this. I watched the video when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar broke Wilt Chamberlain's record for most points in the NBA. Yeah, they called a timeout and stopped the game for a little bit. You know, Kareem gave some guys a hug, but then the game went on shortly thereafter. This big celebration that they put on where LeBron's getting the microphone, talking to the fans, you know, they stopped the whole game like he just won the NBA Finals. I wasn't a big fan of it. Anyways, this LeBron breaking this record has brought back the eternal Jordan versus LeBron debate. I know everybody loves this debate. Everybody likes to talk about it. Everybody has their guy. But for me, it comes down to one thing. And this goes back to what I would talk about with Zach LaVine. What makes a player his greatest is in the biggest moments does he become his greatest. Yes, the lore, the legend, the shoes, the swagger, the dunk contest, the flying through the air. That all matters. That's all part of the Jordan thing. But at the same time, Jordan was at his absolute best in the biggest moments. When the pressure was on the most, Jordan was at his best, and that's what made him the greatest. 6 finals championships, 6 finals MVP, refused to lose in those big games. What has LeBron lost? 7 finals? Biggest moments. Is LeBron really his best? That year against the Dallas Mavericks, he completely choked when he was with the Miami Heat his first year. Not that LeBron isn't a great player. I think LeBron is the second greatest player of all time. What he can do on a basketball court, his body of work, passing, rebounding, I get all that. LeBron is a great player, but he is not Michael Jordan, and he will never be. Nobody considers Emmitt Smith the best running back of all time, even though he has the most rushing yards of all time. Nobody's ever said that. They always say Barry Sanders or Walter Payton, Jim Brown. Nobody was saying that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the greatest player of all time when he held this record for so long. So why are we trying to give it to LeBron now that he broke the scoring record? It's meaningless in that debate. It's meaningless in the GOAT debate. There is only one Michael. There will never be another. He is the greatest athlete of all time. Speaking of greatest of all time, Tom Brady announced his retirement for the second time. I do believe it is for real this time. I'll repeat what I said before about Zach LaVine as well. What makes a player truly great is in the biggest moments is he his greatest, and Tom Brady showed that as well. All those Super Bowls, big moments at the end of the game. We saw it against the Atlanta Falcons that one year when they were down 24. He stepped up and won that game, won that Super Bowl for the Patriots. Good career for Tom. Happy for him. Happy that he gets to ride off in the sunset. Yeah, it was a down year for him, but he gave it his all, played into his 40s. First player to really do that we've seen in the modern era. He'll join Fox in 2024 in some sort of a media role, probably commenting on games or in the morning show, something of that nature. But good to see for Tom Brady. Other news, Devin Hester. It's being reported that he will not be in this upcoming Hall of Fame class. Put this guy in the Hall of Fame. Greatest returner of all time. This guy absolutely changed the game. We need to get Devin Hester in the Hall of Fame. Should have been a first ballot guy. All right, but that's going to wrap it up here for Sucker Free Sports Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and like always, if you're gonna talk sports, always keep it sucker free.